Happenstance happened to have Schlesa here today, and they were adjusting saddles for us, which is hopefully another process that we'll give you guys to see as well. But, kind of go over what we do here. So every day when we're done, we clean our equipment. And there's several reasons for that. One is because I want the leather to last a long time. I don't want the stitching to wear. It's expensive to replace it. But two, when you clean your tack, you look under everything, right? You check the stirrups, you check the stirrup bars, you check the threading on the cinch or the girth or wherever it is. And we like to think that we do that when we're tacking up, but we don't really, right? There's a lot of spots that we don't see, especially in the Western saddle. I've seen it where the stirrup has broken off because people haven't slid up that metal bar in a while to see what the leather looks like underneath. And, it could be pretty cracked and not something that you want to experience when you're way in the backcountry, your stirrup falling off the bottom and having to, adjust that. And so it's really important for people to check their tack on a daily basis. I'm actually anal enough to the point to where even if I have somebody tack up for me, I will recheck it, right? I'll look underneath because, so often, depending on if I know the person really well or not, if I know that they inspect it all the time too, I just at the mercy of whoever just, put the saddle on and tacked it up. And I've had situations on bridles as well where the Chicago screws have come undone and the bit falls out of the mouth. And that's a lot of times stuff that could have been caught, right? If you're really cleaning it, really looking at it, you can kind of see, oh, shoot, this is a little loose. Not always. Sometimes that happens, right? Just happens on the ride. But I don't want somebody to think that tack cleaning is just so everything looks beautiful. It's really a safety hazard, and rotting thread is a big one that you'll see. I mean, I know we had a situation a couple years ago where on a back cinch, fortunately it was a back cinch, the threading had rotted out and it fell off during the ride and the horse was okay. But it was the underneath part, right, that always comes into contact with the sweat. Yeah, we cleaned it, but we didn't notice the rotting as well as we should have. If it had been the front, the front cinch, we would have been a problem. It would have been a problem, right? So for us, we really make sure now we inspect everything. We take it apart when we clean it. We moisturize it so it does last longer. On your Western cinches, I want you to think about the offside too. So you have the side that you cinch up on, you have the offside. Well, I have actually seen the leather part that comes on top. I don't even know what that's called, that attaches to the metal up there. The top part, I've seen the top part crack and break off on that side because unless you take the whole thing apart, that's not really something that you look at very often. So, you might ask yourself, well, why does the leather crack? Well, a couple reasons. One, we live in a dry environment and most places, aren't as humid as though it was alive on skin, right? And second, because when your horses sweat, the sweat has salt in it and it's constantly drying out the skin, right? The leather, which is skin, right? So you really need to make sure that you put your conditioner on when you're done. You wipe it off with water first, clean all the salt off of it, right? Get all that off, just like us. Get in the shower. What do? We get in the shower, we clean our skin, right? You can use some soap. We don't use soap a lot because soap can dry it. We do, every once in a while. And then we condition it afterwards. We like something called oak wood. Here, there's other good products, Postier, different things. Biggest thing is you want to make sure there's no alcohol in it. So a lot of times products that really make them shiny aren't actually good for you either. So you might find yourself spending about $30 on a jar of leather conditioner. It doesn't take a lot, but it's worth it in the end to protect your equipment, right? It's such a pain in the rear end, if you think about it anyway, to find a saddle that works, a cinch that works, bridle that works, right? So on top of the safety thing, it also is, great time and money. Now, another thing to think about too is built up sweat can cause when it's dried. I don't know
Can
if you
cause
guys
what,
have ever
Kristen?
seen when a horse is really
Kristen, you cut out.
sores on the horse. It can cause sores on the horse. So a lot of times people that don't clean their girths enough, or people that don't clean the saddle enough, there gets to be a crust of sweat on the outside. Well, after a while, that crust, if it rubs, every time you ride, the back of your saddle does this, right? So if your saddle pad isn't clean and it's all crusted with sweat on the back, that crust is going to do the same thing on your horse's skin. And even if they don't have a sore, you have to ask yourself, is that really comfortable? Would that be something you would do to yourself? Well, no, right? So, I always recommend to people, have multiple pads, have multiple cinches if it's not a leather cinch or a string cinch, right? Because you need time to be able to clean it, let it dry, do whatever it needs to do, because a lot of that stuff you can't put in the dryer, right? So, be prepared to take care of your horse in that sense, right? The same thing happens in the wintertime with shedding, heavy shedding, right? It gets all matted up, stuck to the girth, and we got to take care of that for our guys. We got to be their voice. They can't complain, and a lot of times they're so dang tough that they won't complain, but it still bothers them, right? So we really, really, really want to take care of our equipment. And it probably takes, if you clean it every time, 5 to 10 minutes. That's it. The saddle fitter out here today, we were just talking, and I have a client who, she has a saddle that was made in 2008 by them, and it looks brand spanking new. And she has always put the cover on it. She has always conditioned it. When it was stored for long periods of time, it was stored in a room that had a humidifier. And I mean, at this rate, she could use that one saddle for the rest of her life and never need to buy another one, as long as it fits the horse that it's on. And we were joking. This lady said, I'll never forget, I went into a place and this woman had holes in the side of the leather on the saddle flaps. The cantle piece was coming apart. And for one, she was thinking, well, how comfortable could that be for your horse, right, to ride in that? And two, then they had to go through the whole process of buying all new equipment again, right? And for my kids that come in here ride with us, I also really teach them to take care for the equipment so that they value how hard we've worked for something too. It's a really good lesson for your young riders that ride, right? Take care of the stuff that you've given to them. Make them understand, how long it can last. I play a game with my kids and I say, how old do you think this bridle is, right? Say like 5 years, and like, no, try 35, right? And they look at it and they go, oh my gosh, this looks beautiful. I'm like, yeah, well, when you buy something that's nice and you take care of it, it lasts, right? And then, you get to save it forever. And I think for them, that also gives them a sense of pride and a sense of understanding on the value of something. So if you have kids that ride, that's another part of it too, right? Value the equipment, value taking care of your horse, make them understand if you take care of something that'll last a long time. So sorry, that's my whole rant. So,
So the other things that I want to add into that, being a trainer who works with multiple horses, as does Kristen, we don't always have, like I have a client who has several different horses, and she has a halter, headstall, bridle, saddle pad, and saddle for each individual horse. But not everybody has that luxury.
No.
And I see this with a lot of other trainers who have a training barn and they have multiple horses in training. And they use the same halter, the same headstall, snaffle bit, same saddle pad, same saddle. And they will ride 6 to 8 horses in a day. And every single one of those horses sweats. And then they're not cleaning their gear. And the horses are there 30, 60, 90 days. Okay. So you'll start to see, like Kristen said, you'll start to see sores around their cinch girth area. That can be many reasons that's causing that. You'll start to, you may see it, you may catch it if they're there long enough. You may not see it until the horse goes home. And all of a sudden the horse starts balding where the halter or the bridle sat, where the girth was, where the pad was. And people think, oh my gosh, they're rubbing their face raw, you know, and so they'll put ointment and stuff on it. But what's really happened is any place that sweats on a living being, dog, probably not cats, horses, and humans, anywhere that we have a dark area, like under the girth, under the headstall, those areas that sweats and has contact with something that's not being kept clean, it's the great media for yeast infections. And yeast infections can be considered a fungus. There's ringworm, there's all kinds of different dermatitis, fungus type things out there. And these trainers know or don't know, send their these clients' horses home, and the horse keeps balding and balding and balding, and the client doesn't know why. They may be taking that headstall and that bridle and halter off and using it on other horses, and the next thing they know, they've got severe balding and sometimes crusty, oozy wounds in these areas. And what they don't know is that their horse has a fungus, which is extremely uncomfortable, but once it's diagnosed, it's pretty easy to treat. So it goes back to what Kristen is saying, practicing good hygiene. So you want to take care of your equipment because it's going to last longer, but you also want to take care of your equipment because it's going to keep your horse healthy and not itchy. So when you have a horse that's super itchy on the girth or super itchy where the halter or the headstall's going, you want to start thinking about, ooh, do I have the potential of a fungus showing up? And the way that you can help that is antibacterial soap. Kristen and I both agree hands down. We use Novosan. Now, Novosan is going to keep bacteria and things down. I'm not entirely sure it's an antifungal, but as long as you don't come into contact with a horse that's got a fungus, and you don't allow for that moist, icky environment, your horse should be free of fungal issues.
Yeah.
So the Novosan's going to work great.
No,
so what's our point here? The point is, if you send your horse off to a trainer, pay attention, send your gear and ask that your gear be used. Label it up and ask that it be used. Ask questions. Hey, are you disinfecting your gear, and how often are you disinfecting it? You got the right to ask that. As a trainer, I want you to ask all the questions you want to ask because I want to be completely transparent. I want you to feel comfortable leaving your horse with me. If you have multiple horses at home and you're using the same gear, you know, just clean in between, just a nice wipe of disinfectant, you know, in between each ride. You can have, you could start the morning with a bucket, just a little bucket of water with Novosan in it and a sponge, and in between rides, you know, when you take it off, just clean it up while you put that horse, groom that horse, and put that horse away. By the time you're ready to use it again, it's going to be clean, right, Kristen? I mean, that would be a way. And then, like she said, you know, like I don't saddle soap my gear every day. I'm gonna admit I could lie, but I don't want to. But when I do inspect my gear, which is usually about once a week, I sit down and clean it all up. But what you also need to pay attention to, not just your saddle, your bridle.
Mm-hmm.
Anywhere that you have screws. I have a friend who's actually a client of Jennifer's, and I mean, not Jennifer's, a client of Kristen's, and we went out riding out in the lake, and she's like, you know, inspecting all her gear, doing everything right, and she saw a screw on the floor, and she looked at her bridle, and all the screws were there, and she's like, okay, that must be the one that was missing. So we got like a quarter a mile, half mile out on the trail, and all of a sudden she's not got control, and I looked at her and I'm like, hey, your bridle's come off. Well, what had happened was that screw, the back part of it, is what was on the ground. So luckily I always carry carabiners and a little 6-inch rope with me, and we were able to jimmy rig that and complete our ride. But you got to check. You know, if it's buckles, make sure that they're all good. If they're the straps or the rawhide or the screws, you know, check all that, because eek, it can be pretty scary if you don't realize it. Like, you know, we caught it and she was able to keep herself safe. So,
and he was a good, and probably a good horse too.
Yeah.
You know, some horses would capitalize on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it all went well. And now she carries that same little string on the side of her saddle, you know. So one of the other good things, you guys, is if you use the screws, and they have a name. Do you remember the name, Chris?
Chicago screws.
Yes, Chicago screws. You know, the next time at your local tack store or online Amazon, order a box of 6 or a dozen, and have some in your trailer and have some in your tack room, so that no matter where you are, those things can back out. You can check it in one day, and the next day it backs out on you if it's losing its grip. So it's not just for the longevity, but a 35-year-old bridle. I actually have tack that I got when I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's how we survive in the horse industry, is to be able to nurture our gear and keep it safe. But it's also the health issues for our horse and the safety for both of us. All right, that was my tangent. Take it away, Kristen.
Yeah. No, I don't think I have much else to say. I'm like, I think we covered a lot of it, because, you know, it's just stuff people don't think about. Right. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because, you know, with the saddle fitting here and stuff, I'm like, you know, that's something that we do, but it's not just for the, you know, it's not just for the looks. Right.
No. I mean, it's nice to have that really expensive gear because it's going to last you a long time. But yeah, the better we take care of it, the healthier our horses are. I mean, you know, you could be riding your horse and all of a sudden he's flinching, like he's got that fly on his back, you know, and you're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? Well, it could be just too much crust built up on the pad. It could be a sticker under the pad. It could have been, you know, I see so many people that are just out and about when I'm out and about, or even my clients. And they take their saddle, and I do Western. So they take their saddle and they've got their cinch dragging across the ground. And then they set their saddle up on its horn, you know, so it's standing up and the blanket is right there. And they just set it in the sticker bushes or in a pile of hay. And then they throw that thing up on their horse, and they don't do the groundwork, which I teach everybody. There's a reason we do groundwork before we get in the saddle. And the next thing they know, their horse takes to bucking. You know, they climb aboard, they take 6 steps, and their horse unleashes on them. And they're mad at the horse, and the horse is an idiot, and the horse is a bad horse, and blah, 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 blah. And when you go to looking at the gear, there's a burr in their cinch. because they drug that cinch across the ground. So there's a reason we tie everything up. There's a reason we keep it compact, not only because it's easier to throw up over your horse, but because it keeps your horse, it keeps it clean so it doesn't aggravate your horse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what else to say about that.
I think we covered it all.
I mean, we could have had some good, you know, I have a saddle lotion that I use, and I wish I could tell you the name of it, because I've used a lot of saddle soaps and saddle conditioners, and, you know, they're okay, but I love this new saddle lotion I'm using. So if I can think about it, I'll go and post, I'll find out the name of it and post it in the comments of this video, because one of the things Kristen and I try to do is give you, you know, not just good tips, but to share with you the products that we like to use. So sorry,
and
I dropped the ball.
It's okay, and I'll take a picture of the oak lid too.
Yeah,
that's good stuff too.
So we'll post them in the comments for you guys. And again, you know, like we always say, if you have any questions, comments, we'd love to hear them in the comment section. We have a YouTube channel that we'd love to have you check out, Synergistic Horsemanship. If you check it out, please subscribe. It's what keeps us going and growing.
Yep.
And we're here every Thursday night.
And send us suggestions on what you guys want to hear about too.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. Now, next week, we have decided we are going to talk, because we just had a big fire here in our valley. All of you that don't know where we're located in the Carson Valley of Nevada. And we had a huge fire take place on Monday. And we had a lot of smoke in our valley. And so Kristen and I decided that next Thursday night, we're going to talk about lung health on your horse and rider. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So hopefully we'll have some good information about that, some good tips. I love to use, there's some essential oils out there that are great for lung health, not only on the human, but on the horse as well. So we're going to do our due diligence in researching the topic. So next Thursday night, you guys join us for some horse lung health talk. Until then, you guys,
thank you.
Thanks for joining us. Stay safe, stay happy and healthy, and enjoy your horses.
Yay. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye, everybody.